If you want to clear a room, just put these words together: relationship boundaries. Hey, where'd you go? Really, I've never heard an enthusiastic response when bringing up this topic. Maybe we need to take a more positive approach and view relationship boundaries as they really are intended: a tool to keep ourselves and our relationship smoothly on track before resentment or an impending blow-up occurs. Welcome, listeners, to Straight Wife Trans Life. I'm Lisa. Let's tackle setting relationship boundaries when your spouse or partner comes out as transgender. My spouse mentioned during a recent discussion that she has always been a woman. Wait, what? I married a man, and up until our 13th year of marriage, thought I was living with one. This led to a conversation that ended with me saying, I understand what you're telling me and I support you 100%, but it hurts me to hear out loud that you have always been a woman, and I need you to please keep that to yourself in future discussions. It is still too soon for me to hear it said that way. And it's not inaccurate. She has shared that she felt different since childhood, but for me, it makes our marriage feel less authentic to hear it said that way. I've always been a woman. And she understood and promised she would be more mindful, and I know she will. And this is an example of a boundary that I've set, which shortened is, please keep this phrase to yourself. It still hurts, and I need some time. So, what are boundaries? Let's start with what boundaries are not. Boundaries are not something you set to manipulate or control someone else. If your partner, or yes, you, are doing anything close to that, it might be time to re-examine where your relationship is headed. Healthy boundaries are meant for you to be true to your needs while still being respectful and honest within your relationship. I've been reading through a few books about boundaries, and I won't recommend books that I haven't read cover to cover, but I like what I've read so far in the following books, and will list them in the episode description. So, I like this definition of a boundary from a book by Melissa Urban titled The Book of Boundaries: Set the Limits That Will Set You Free. And this is verbatim. She says, I define boundaries as clear limits you establish around the ways you allow people to engage with you so that you can keep yourself and your relationship safe and happy. When your spouse comes out as transgender, let's be honest, we aren't all feeling very safe and happy in that moment. Our world has been flipped upside down, and we might feel angry or scared or worried. And we might wonder how we will understand when it is time to set boundaries. Nedra Glover Tawwab, author of Set Boundaries and Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself, offers several signs that boundaries need to be set, such as neglecting self-care, feeling overwhelmed, not having time for yourself, avoiding interactions with people who might ask something from you, and frequently daydreaming about dropping everything and disappearing. I can relate to that one when my spouse came out to me. So how do we set and keep some boundaries to stay true to ourselves while figuring out what's next? Melissa's book mentions 3 steps of boundaries. The first is identify the need for a boundary. This can be knowing you need space to process your spouse coming out, or on the other end, maybe you know that this is where the relationship ends for you, or you can offer support, but it can't be under the same roof. The next step is to set the boundary using clear, kind language. I was not the kindest person when my spouse came out, but I took time to calm down, and then I came back and said, I really need space to calm down and figure out what all of this means for me, for us, for our kid, and our future. I love you, but please give me space. And she did. She really stepped up by doing dishes and cooking and laundry while I was a bit of a zombie after disclosure. I still took our son to and from school and went through some regular routines, but my spouse and I have a lot of mutual respect and trust for one another. Plus, we've been together long enough that she can just tell by my tone of voice or my facial expression when I need space or that everything is calm and it's safe to be in my vicinity again. On the flip side, if you know that this is not what you signed up for by a long shot, Find a way to be kind when you deliver the news. Maybe it's, I love you and our relationship has been really special, but I can't stay in the same house. I will support you, but I need to do it from my own space, and I need time alone without contact for a few days or however long you set. The third step is hold the boundary, which I interpret as you being consistent and sticking to it, and your partner respecting it. If you say you need to leave, and maybe it's temporary, maybe you just need time to process the news of your spouse coming out at your parents' house or a friend's house, then you need to be honest with yourself and give yourself the time apart, and your partner needs to stay away and be respectful and allow you to take that time. The boundary won't work if you say that you need time apart and then you guys meet up for dinner the next evening. You need this for you. Take the time to figure things out, or you will end up angry and resentful, mad at yourself, and just mad at everyone around you. When I came out of my zombie mode, I told my spouse that I would need time to go out on my own, more often, to catch movies or to maybe meet up with friends, as a way to make sure that I wasn't losing myself to the transition. It was my version of self-care. And keep in mind that this is a two-way street. My spouse's boundary when she first came out was, please don't tell your family that I am transgender, and let's limit others we tell until I'm ready to tell my family. And that was difficult, but I understood how important this was to her, and I was willing to wait. So we held true to that boundary. If you receive any pushback from your spouse or partner after you tell them what you need, like, I'm not going to do that, or what about my needs? I want to read Nedra's solution for that, and this is verbatim. She says, acknowledge that you heard the other person's concern. Restate the boundary you originally set. So if my spouse had said, but we always go to the movies together, I would have said, I know that we usually go to the movies together, but I need to go alone from time to feel safe and to have some quiet time, and having this time helps me feel more at peace. And boundaries are one thing, but it is also important to understand that your spouse coming out as transgender won't fix anything that might have already been broken. Hopefully you see a happier version of your partner through this transition. However, if your partner was mean, controlling, or had issues before the transition, those likely won't change. And vice versa. If there is a sense of limited support from you where your transgender partner is expecting support, tensions will rise. Address it and know that you and your partner matter. Your health matters, and it is always okay to leave a bad situation or end a relationship and start fresh. Let's switch gears now to consider the friend and family side of boundaries. You've just told them your spouse or partner has come out as transgender, and maybe you need to set some boundaries with friends and family, and they might need to set some with you. I've set boundaries with my family. Sometimes questions can be invasive, and maybe they don't see it that way, like, are you still sleeping in the same bed? Are you going to open up your relationship? And then the most common is your spouse getting surgery down there? Regarding the surgery question, I have a template, you could say, where I either say or write, you can ask me anything about the transition, but you can't ask me about any surgeries that my partner plans to do. Because it's personal for her, and transgender people really vary regarding how much or how little they would like to or need to do, depending on what makes them feel most true to themselves. And that is a long sentence. I tend to go overboard on communication, so short and sweet is fine as well. And again, boundaries work two ways, so your friends might not want to hear about your partner's transition in the first place. And try not to be offended if they set a boundary with you. It hasn't happened to me yet because I check in a lot with people. I'm that person who says, I don't want to freak you out, so stop me if this is too much. I'm very proactive in that sense. But if someone sets a boundary with you, try to keep an open mind. Years ago, and I want to say it's been 15 years, maybe more, a friend of mine who I grew up with across the street from confronted me, and we're in different cities now, and she said something to the effect of, I don't know how our friendship can continue because I feel like you, X, Y, and Z, whatever it was. And at first I was offended. I thought to myself, what? I am an amazing friend. I am so loyal and honest, and I'm fun. But then I had to really think about what she said and pay attention to what she was trying to convey. And she was right. And then it became, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I did that or treated situations like that. And I apologized and told her I had no idea I was doing that. And thank you for not letting it slide or getting so upset that we couldn't remain friends. And to this day, I'm grateful that she told me how she felt. And I'm grateful for our friendship. And hold on to the people in your life who are willing to be honest with you like that and who want to communicate and set boundaries to keep your relationship. The boundary was, I need this in order for us to keep going as friends. This episode is like a mini introduction to setting boundaries, and I want to run down where you can look to find more information. So there are lots and lots of books on relationship boundaries, and if you don't want to commit to purchasing one yet because you can't decide, check out your library. Go to the library or use your library card to browse the online selection. A lot of libraries have an online catalog, in case you haven't been. Unrelated side note, if you are bilingual or trilingual, some libraries have an extensive selection of books and magazines in other languages. Now, if you don't have time to deal with books, check if the author has a YouTube channel or blog, has a podcast, or has been interviewed in a podcast where they discuss boundaries. And if you prefer, talking face-to-face with a real person, find a therapist. There's no shame in seeking professional help, and I recommend finding a therapist who works with or is supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. And that does it for this episode. Until next time, remember that boundaries are there to help you stay true to yourself and your needs as you and your transgender partner work through the highs and lows of the transition, one step at a time.